The drama surrounding Naoya Inoue has never been about whether he would win. It has always been about how violently, how cleanly, and how inevitably the end would arrive. Every time he steps into the ring, there is a quiet tension that hangs in the air. The kind that only exists when greatness is present and danger is guaranteed. Against Nery, that tension felt heavier than usual, because this was not just another challenger. This was a fighter with a reputation for chaos, for recklessness, for walking through fire and daring his opponent to burn with him. And for a brief moment, it looked like that madness might actually work. The early rounds carried an edge that could not be ignored. Nery's aggression was raw and unapologetic, and when he caught Inoue early, it sent a shockwave through the arena. For the first time in a long while, the monster had been touched, reminded that even legends bleed. But the difference between a great fighter and an all-time one is not what happens when things go right. It is how they respond when the script breaks. From the moment Inoue rose, eyes calm and posture steady, it became clear that Nery had not awakened fear. He had awakened something far worse. By the third round, the rhythm of the fight began to change in subtle but decisive ways. Inoue settled into his groove, snapping combinations with surgical precision. Each punch placed with intention rather than emotion. Nery's attacks came hard, but they came predictable. And predictability is a death sentence against a fighter who sees the ring in slow motion. Inoue took half steps back, sometimes full steps, inviting Nery to overcommit and then punishing him for the mistake. It was no longer about speed alone. It was about anticipation, about reading thoughts before they became actions. When fighters talk about the moment everything slows down, this is what they mean. Inoue wasn't reacting anymore. He was waiting. He knew the shots before they were thrown, understood the rhythm of Nery's aggression, and began to dismantle it piece by piece. Sharp right hands found their way through the guard. Hooks dug into the body with cruel efficiency. Every exchange tilted the balance further, and the confidence in Inoue's movement told the story before the scorecards ever could. Nery, for all his bravado, understood what was happening. He could feel the gap growing, the speed and coordination slipping beyond his reach. His only hope was chaos, a single devastating left hand that could turn discipline into disaster. That hope is what kept him swinging, lunging, and chasing moments that never truly arrived. Inoue, aware of the danger, refused to get greedy. He showed patience, drawing Nery in with feints, using his jab to control distance, and punishing every lapse with precision that bordered on cruelty. As the fourth round unfolded, the pressure intensified. Inoue's jab began tearing holes in Nery's defense, his hooks finding gaps that should not have existed at this level. The monster wasn't just landing punches, he was breaking habits. Nery's fundamentals, already shaky, were exposed under the weight of constant punishment. Every time he fired, he left himself open. Every time he retreated, Inoue was already there, cutting angles, denying escape. By the fifth round, the fight had taken on a grim inevitability. Inoue was operating at full capacity.com in the storm, while Nery absorbed punishment with nowhere left to run. The sound of Inoue's combinations echoed differently now, sharp and unmistakable. The sound of technique perfected over a lifetime. Nery tried to step forward, tried to reclaim momentum, but each attempt came with enormous risk and no reward. When the left hook finally landed again, scoring another knockdown, it felt less like a surprise and more like a confirmation of what everyone already knew. Positioning told the deeper story. Against a southpaw-led foot dominance becomes everything, and Inoue owned it completely. Nery, constantly drifting toward danger, walked into right hands again and again, unable or unwilling to adjust. Inoue welcomed him forward, eyes locked, reading every movement, noticing the slightest drop of the guard, the smallest opening on the inside. This was not chaos. This was control. As the clock ticked down and the crowd sensed the end approaching, Inoue shifted gears one final time. He stood his ground, answered fire with fire, and when the opening appeared, he took it without hesitation. A short uppercut, a compact right hand, and the effect was immediate. Nery's knees buckled as he crumpled to the canvas, the roar of the monster echoing through the arena. It was over, not because of brutality alone, but because of a level of technique that exists only at the very top of the sport. The victory spoke volumes, yet it was only another chapter in a career defined by brilliance. Inoue had once again taken a dangerous opponent and handed him a lesson that would last far longer than the bruises. And as the spotlight shifted forward, the story continued, because monsters do not rest, they move on. When Naoya Inoue entered the ring against Marlon Tapales' conqueror, Morrigan Armadaleaf, it was immediately clear, this was no routine title defense. This was a collision between two elite fighters at the peak of their powers. Inoue arrived with a reputation forged through precision, timing, and ruthless efficiency, while Armadaleaf carried the confidence of an Olympic medalist who believed he possessed the tools to solve the puzzle in front of him. From the opening bell, the tone was tense and calculated. Inoue worked behind a probing jab, testing reactions, slipping shots into the body, while Armadaleaf remained composed, watchful, and patient. He waited for mistakes, for moments where the champion might overextend or grow careless. but those moments never truly came. Inoue's discipline was absolute, his movements economical, his intentions clear. The third round marked the first real shift. A heavy right hand landed flush on Akhmataliv's jaw, and though the challenger smiled it off, the message was unmistakable. The monster was warming up, the tempo increased, the gaps widened, and the separation between world-class and generational greatness began to show. Akhmataliv had talent, toughness, and belief. But belief alone cannot close distance against speed that sharp. Despite brief flashes of success, including a couple of clean shots in the fourth, Akhmataliv struggled to maintain momentum. Every time he landed, Inoue answered immediately, reasserting control through footwork and hand speed that denied space and opportunity. This was not a brawl, it was a masterclass in distance management. As the middle rounds unfolded, Inoue revealed the full depth of his skill set. Often labeled a knockout artist, he instead chose patience, landing single shots, controlling the pace, and dictating the rhythm as if he were sparring rather than fighting an elite contender. When Akhmataliv briefly trapped him on the ropes, the crowd held its breath, only to watch Inoue calmly fire back with compact body shots that forced a reset and restored order. By the later rounds, the gap had become undeniable. Akhmataliv needed something extraordinary. But extraordinary moments are rare against a fighter who makes so few mistakes. He chased, missed, and grew visibly frustrated, unable to crack the puzzle in front of him. Even when urged by his corner to increase activity, the cost of doing so became painfully clear. Every attempt was met with a counter, every risk punished. The ninth round showcased Inoue at his very best. Vicious combinations flowed effortlessly, punctuated by a perfectly timed right uppercut that snapped Akhmataliv's head back. Though the challenger absorbed it bravely, the damage was evident. A brief resurgence in the 10th felt more like an interruption than a turning point, as normal order quickly resumed. In the championship rounds, Inoue glided around the ring, peppering Akhmataliv with sharp shots while taking almost nothing in return. The shift in attitude was striking. What began as confidence turned into survival, and the corner's rallying cries became acknowledgments of a fight slipping away. Even knowing he needed a knockout, Akhmataliv remained cautious, aware that one mistake could end everything. When the final bell rang, there was no doubt. Inoue had owned the night, delivering a flawless exhibition of skill, composure, and elite ring IQ. At 32 years old, he stands, having nearly wiped out the super bantamweight division, a supreme force whose dominance forces the boxing world to look ahead rather than question the present. That future looms in the form of fellow Japanese superstar Junto Nakatani, a three-division champion moving up with clear intentions. A clash between them would not just define a division or a nation, it would define an era. Until then, Naoya Inoue remains the standard, the monster who turns danger into inevitability and brilliance into routine. So the question remains, as it always does when greatness becomes undeniable: is Naoya Inoue truly the greatest of all time, or is his story still being written right before our eyes? Let me know what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed this deep dive into elite boxing and legendary fighters, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one.